Okay, guys, we are starting a new unit today, Unit 5, Relations. So let's pull out our notes here, and you're going to start taking some notes on this, okay? So make sure you have them. So really, this unit is called Relations. It's kind of just looking at data, graphing the data, and interpreting the data, okay? There's not a lot of math involved. Okay, it's more about data interpretation than anything. It's a very short unit. This unit is only going to take us 4 days to get through. So it'll take us this week to get through, and then next week we'll have an assignment for it. Probably give you about 2 days for the assignment. Again, just like our geometry assignment, it's just going to be online, hand-in based like that. Okay, make our life easier. So a little bit hypothesis. Okay. And sources of data. So a hypothesis is a theory or a statement that is either true or false.
Good morning, with it.
So again, a statement or can be true or false. So again, it doesn't have to just be a true statement for your hypothesis. It could be a false statement, you decide. If a hypothesis is false though, okay, then the opposite is true. So if it doesn't actually happen in your study, then it's the opposite is true. So write a hypothesis about the relationship between the given variables and state the opposite hypothesis. Okay, guys. So weight and junk food. What would you guys put as your hypothesis for weight and junk food? Someone, what do you think? How about yeah? Yeah, so as you, okay, let's put as junk food. So an increase in junk food consumption leads to an increase in weight, right? Would you guys say that's a pretty good hypothesis? Okay, so what's the opposite of that hypothesis then? Kevin? Or it leads to a decrease, right? You could say maybe in this situation. So the opposite would be the increase in junk food consumption leads to no or a decrease, let's put, okay? No or a decrease of weight, okay? Easy peasy so far? Okay. What about basketball skills and the hours of practice? What do you think?
The more hours of practice, the better skills get.
Increase in hours of practice leads to an increase in basketball skills, right? Not too bad so far? Okay. What would be the opposite of that? It's easy. Just someone, just talk. I know it's a long weekend. You guys are just coming. Dylan, let's go.
Hours of practice leads to either no increase or decrease in as well.
Sounds great. I like it. So an increase in hours of practice lead to no / decrease in basketball skills. Oh, and I should also just remind everybody that this is a unit 5, day 1. This unit will have oh, that's not how you do it, an assignment, okay, at the end of it. So we only have 4 days of this. So to test a hypothesis, you collect data, okay? There are 2 different types of data. You have primary data, so original data that researchers gathered for a particular experiment or survey, or secondary data that someone else has gathered for others to purpose. So it depends on, so a lot of this, if you guys go to university, okay, you will actually take essentially a course on how to examine data. It's called statistics. Pretty much, it's a mandatory course. Okay, everybody will have to take it in your first year of university. You get really involved into primary data and secondary data when you get into your upper years in university. So for my master's, I did a lot of secondary data. I didn't have to do a lot of primary data because of the master's course I took in educational leadership. So I looked at a lot of studies. So what I was looking at in my master's was bridging the gap in the curriculum between elementary and secondary school. Okay, what is elementary doing that's good for secondary school students? What is elementary doing that's bad, or vice versa? What is secondary doing that's not bridging that gap? So that's what mine was. So I looked at a lot of secondary data when I was doing that. I was looking at like EQAO testing scores. I was looking at different curriculum content, different ways schools were teaching ideas. So just, it's really more an upper year thing. As you get going, you'll really look at that stuff. Okay. So identify each set as either primary or secondary data. Okay. Colin read a textbook article written by a man who fought in World War II. What do you guys think? Primary or secondary data? Secondary, right? Because the guy that went to war is the primary guy, but Colin read about his experience, right? No, it's all right.
Reading about the textbook, would that be tertiary?
It could be, but it's not really, because you're still getting this. It's only 1-2 data points away, right? Becky searched through the grocery store to find the best price for cereal. Primary. Okay. And then Daniel used Stats Canada website to determine how many Canadians own cars. Secondary. Oh, I love the Stats Can website for data. I love it. Great data. You can get a lot of stuff there. Okay? Use that a lot in my research. Okay? It's nice and formulated, graphs and everything for you. It's great. Okay. That was the first part of the lesson. That's how short the lessons are. Okay? For this, we're going to do one more though today. So I'm going to write this down. This is for after the test. Okay? So part 1 of 2 of homework. So I'm going to write that on the board here.
Wait, do we have a test today?
Yes.
Oh.
On our last unit that we've only talked about for like however long. I mentioned it in like every lesson.
I thought it was on Wednesday.
How would you
No.
have a test on Wednesday if you're not here?
Because I thought everything moved over. That's why I thought I had English today.
Yeah, I also thought I had it.
I don't know why you guys would think you guys had English.
Imagine not checking out guidebooks.com for Instagram. Not you guys, not you guys.
Really? And then in those 48 to 51, you're defining key terms. Okay. So that's on the board. So that'll be for after. Okay. We have a second part of the lesson today, and these are called sampling principles. Okay. So consider the following situations. Natalie Beauchamp surveyed randomly from her online youth book club members as well as a list of youth card holders at 2 nearest community libraries. She returns to school and suggests to her friends on Students' Council that the school should host a readathon to raise money for prom, since participants in her survey all felt that it was a good idea. What is the problem with Natalie's research? Okay, first, what's the problem with Natalie's research? Just think about it, okay? Friends, what else?
She asked the book club people, so it's like biased.
Yeah, she asked the book club people, right? She went to the library. If you're at the library, do you probably like to read? Yeah, so they are biased to having to do that. Yeah, Dylan?
It's not a fair sample. No, it's not a fair sample size. You're taking from that's what they said.
Yeah, it's all right, okay? It's really not a fair sample size because you're going to a location that is biased towards that, right? So it is important to know your sampling principles because that does become important, okay? So some definitions, and you'll need to know these. So population is the entire group being studied, okay? So you're looking at an age group. Are you looking at maybe a community group? It kind of just depends. What are you trying to get from your study? And based on what your goal of your study is, it will determine the population that you're going to examine, okay? A sample. A sample is taken from that population, okay? So any group of people or items taken from the population. So again, you might be my population, but I only take a sample of you guys for my research because it's just too many people to do everything with, okay? And then a census surveys all the members of a population, okay? Anybody ever heard of the Canadian census?
Yeah.
Parents have to do it, I have to do it, okay? That is an example of a census because they're trying to use the entire population, and that's where Stats Canada gets a lot of their data from, okay? So that's where we get that from. I'm just gonna wait. I know some of you guys are writing down those definitions. Everybody have those down? Okay. Excellent. So look at identifying some of the populations in some groups. Okay? A company wishes to know how many Canadians own an iPod. So what is the population we're looking at? Yeah, Canadian citizens, right? Okay. A school wishes to know what percentage of students want to have a school uniform. Okay, what's the population we're looking at? Yeah, we're just looking at school students, right? So you might even get a little bit more particular. You might be like, what age are you guys? What, 14?
Yeah.
So maybe we're looking at 14 to 18-year-olds. Okay? So let's look at some advantages or disadvantages or what we might think might be some struggles. Okay? So when you survey the entire population, okay, one of the advantage is you get a lot of data. Okay, and because you're sampling the entire population, okay, you get a lot of valid data. Okay, it's very valid. Okay. Now, the disadvantage, this takes a long time. Do you guys know how many years it takes to do a Canadian census? Like how many years it comes out, the Canadian census? Yeah, 4 to 5 years. Every 4 to 5 years, the Canadian census comes out because that's how long. Time. Okay, so the disadvantage is time. Now, when you survey a sample, it essentially does the opposite. Okay, has the opposite effect. So advantage is, a decrease in time, but the disadvantage is the validity of your data, right? Because again, you're only using a certain proportion. A lot of you have heard the word bias before, okay? An error or distortion that results from choosing a bad sample that does not represent the whole population, okay? So like if I want to know the senior citizen's favorite food in a senior citizen home, am I going to come and survey you guys?
No.
No, right? It's not going to be the same. They're not going to like the same things you guys like. Okay?
Wait, why does it say op? What does that apply to? Like, there?
Where?
Under disadvantage. What does that stand for?
This?
Oh, okay.
This?
No.
Opposite.
Yeah. What is that?
What I was just saying is population sample have opposite advantages and
Oh, okay,
disadvantages. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at some sampling techniques, and this kind of takes us to the end of this lesson. There's just a bunch of sampling techniques, okay? And you're gonna hear about these sampling techniques pretty much for like the rest of your life, okay? Until you're out of school, okay? Sampling technique 1 is called simple random sample. A sample in which all members of the population have an equal chance of being chosen, okay? And then what we've done is we've given an example, okay, for each of these. So draw 5 names from a hat holding 30 names and surveying those 5 people, okay? Systematic random sample, okay? Choosing members of a population at fixed intervals from a randomly selected member. So example, the class is arranged in alphabetical order. The teacher chooses a random number to decide where to start, but then selects every 4th name before and after the starting point. And you don't even have to take photos. Don't forget, I posted these notes online, right? So they are posted on the package if you want to go back, okay? Or if you printed them, then you have them. Stratified random sample. The population is divided into groups, and then random samples is taken from each of those groups, okay? The number sampled from each group is proportional to the size of the group. So a school is divided into 4 grades. There are 300 grade 9s, 350 grade 10s, 270 grade 11s, and 320 grade 12s. Proportion of each group is 10%, okay? So they're going to take 10% of each of those sample sizes, okay? So what you would look at, okay, what's 10% of the grade 9s? Here, what's 10% of 300?
I can't see that number.
I can bring this up. 30, right? Okay. What's 10% of the grade 10s?
35.
Okay. 10% of the grade 11s? Okay. And then 10% of the grade 12s. Okay. So what they do is they base up the percentage they want to use from the entire population, and they just use that for each grade to get valid data. Okay.
Is that okay in the washroom?
Yeah, go for it. Non-random sample. Using a method that is not random to choose from a population. This method leads to a lot of bias, right? This method isn't really used in surveying or anything, okay? This is more just be like a method like you decided to go talk to your friend and just see what they thought. But most likely your friend, because of your friend group, probably has the same opinion as you, okay? So let's look at a couple of examples, okay? And let's try them out. So let's see what we think they are. Identify the type of sampling in each situation and then identify the population, okay? So as car parts come off an assembly line, several parts are randomly chosen and inspected for defects. What do you guys think? We're gonna do this as a class. We're gonna determine what we think as a class. So I have simple random sample, systematic random sample, stratified random sample, or non-random sample.
What's the second one?
The second one is systematic, choosing members of a population at fixed intervals for randomly selected members. What do you guys think?
What maybe stratified?
I think it's simple.
Simple random sample, yeah. And what's our population that we're pulling from, guys, here? Yeah, car parts, right? Again, this is not a stressful unit. This is a very easy unit we're doing right now, okay? Don't like overthink stuff, okay? Go with what you're feeling. Student council randomly chooses a group of students from each grade to survey. The number of students is proportional to the size of the class. Okay, which one's that one?
Stratified.
Yeah, stratified random sample. Okay. Yep. Okay, you're gonna have to go to the office. Grab your stuff there. B-O-N-A, Thomas, how do I spell your last name? B-O-N-I-F-A. Thomas, what's your street number?
Seven oh seven 824.
707-824. 82 what?
Four.
4. Okay, so just Thomas. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Mike. You have to wait your turn still to be confidential. So what is our population here that we're looking at? What is the you can sit in your chair.
No, I feel like this kind of makes me a little bit.
Okay. What is the population that we're looking at here, guys? Yeah, students, right? So we're looking at students. Okay. We're not really sure what age group or anything. That's not in the explanation, so all you can really say is students here. Okay. So again, as I said, don't really get too stressed out about this. Okay. At the end of Canadian Idol, the public is invited to call and vote for their favorite contestant. Okay. What would this be considered? What do you guys think? Yeah, it's not random. You get the choice if you would like to participate, right? So we call that a non-random sample. Okay. The population here is, what's population, guys? Pardon? Public, but more so, yeah, Canadian Idol, right, people? Because I'm pretty sure for Canadian Idol to actually vote, you actually have to be Canadian, don't you?
What is Canadian Idol in the first place?
It's like, okay, so, give me 1 second. Phone's coming up, okay? To conduct a telephone survey, a telemarketer randomly selects a starting point in a list of phone numbers then calls every fifth number. So I don't know why that. Okay, yeah, every fifth number before the starting point. Okay, yeah, so as you guys said, this is systematic. It's a pretty popular sampling technique when dealing with large populations. Okay, because it is a pretty good way to really randomize a sample. Okay, so in this example, okay, what is the population we are looking at?
People with phones.
Pardon?
People with phone numbers.
Yes, yeah, population. So people with phone numbers. That's a good one. I like that. I would accept that. With phone numbers. And sometimes a lot more of these questions will have a lot more information, because it might be like, you know, people with phone numbers in Canada, right? Something like that. Okay. So part 2 then, just going to bring this up. I don't think there's any more. Yeah. Part 2, which I'll write on the board, will be page 52, numbers 1 to 6, 9, 13, 14, 20. And this is all out of the regular textbook, so I'm going to write this up here too. So this is part 1, part 2, page 2, numbers 1, 2, 6, 9, 13, 14, Wait. Let's take that down here. Everybody got that down? Good. Regular textbook.